And then when your baby is born, their brain is actually around 25% the size of an adult brain already. But there's still a lot more room for growth.
Darien Suria adalah co-founder dari Learning Time, sebuah brand alat stimulasi yang mendukung tumbuh kembang anak di masa-masa paling krusial dalam hidup mereka, yaitu 1000 hari pertama. Darien percaya bahwa di masa-masa 1000 hari pertama kehidupan anak bukan hanya tentang tumbuh secara fisik, tapi juga tentang membentuk fondasi emosi, kognitif, dan sosial anak. Sehingga alat stimulasi Learning Time pun dikembangkan bersama lebih dari 100 ahli childhood development terkemuka di Hong Kong.
Not having like such high expectations and also not expecting yourself to be perfect all the time. I think that will relieve a lot of the stress of like actually playing with your child and actually enjoying that time with your child. I mean, that those first few years go by so quickly, right? We really identified like, okay, there is a chance for us to make something more systematic for parents and more convenient. So when you're a new parent and you don't know what's going on, you can just have this one program that you have all the things that you need.
Welcome to Boss Mama Podcast yang memiliki tujuan untuk empower women untuk thriving dalam motherhood, personal growth, dan career. Nah, tadi udah lihat ya profil dari narasumber kita kali ini, seorang entrepreneur yang membangun program stimulasi yang tentunya bermanfaat bagi kita ya, para parents. Not just moms, but also parents, karena tujuannya adalah untuk mencerdaskan anak, gak hanya ketika sudah besar ya, tetapi justru dari kecil. Ya, nah di sini I am with Darien Suria. Hi Darien.
Hi Sabrina.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I am so excited because we know that you created Learning Time for us parents to actually stimulate our children better. My baby is also a user of it since she was a newborn. So I think we want to talk about a topic that has been an interest for us parents about stimulation and about our first 1000 days of life, right? So I think to begin the conversation, I want to ask with the basics. Why do you think the first 1000 days is important? We know that we talk about nutrition is important, stimulation is important, but why the first 1000 days?
Actually, when we talk about first 1000 days in child development, we're referring to the period in the womb and outside the womb. So actually, the first 1000 days is important mainly because of brain development. So in the womb, throughout the first 3 trimesters, the brain is taking shape. The neurons and the synapses are being formed. And then when your baby is born, their brain is actually around 25% the size of an adult brain already. But there's still a lot more room for growth. So within the first 3 years, it reaches 80%. So that's why we talk about first 1000 days. It's like, what does your baby actually do between the time their brain is 25% and then growing to 80%?
And that's like a huge leap, right? 25% to 80%. And after 80%, is the growth slowing down or? Yeah,
well, it reaches around 90% at age 5. And then from that point onwards, your child's brain is basically matured. Well, when we talk about fully matured, actually it's around 20 something, like the prefrontal cortex part. But in general, the brain reaches full maturity around that age.
Yeah. So I think 1000 days is like, we want to emphasize to parents that this is the important window for us to develop and support the brain development for our child, because from the scientific perspective, it really grew rapidly, very fast.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, nutrition is super important, like you mentioned. But I think one of the missing pieces when we started Learning Time was the stimulation part. So that's what we're really trying to do in those first 1000 days.
So I wonder, what do you mean by stimulation? Sometimes parents might think stimulation as playing with toys or just exploring around. But I think there's a deeper meaning about stimulation, right? So what do you think it is?
Yeah. You can imagine when your baby is in the womb, they can hear, but they can't see, they can't really touch much. So when they come out, everything is considered stimulation, right? Everything they see, everything they touch, everything they hear, taste. So actually, when we use the word stimulation, it refers to their whole range of experience. But of course, not all stimulation is the same. You can have overstimulation when there's too much going on, too many noises, too many lights, too many things. And then you can have understimulation when the baby is kind of just left on their own and no one's interacting with them, that's usually considered understimulated.
So I think we might see our daily life as like something normal, but for a baby that just come out of the womb, entering the big world, it's like everything is new to them.
Yeah.
So that's why I think sometimes I got this comment. Oh, your baby is joining sensory class. Oh, they're just playing around, right?
Yeah.
But they're just playing around. That's like the keyword where it kind of like downgrades their development. What do you think about that? Like, what is actually happening that for us parents, we cannot really oversee that?
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's kind of the point, that they are just playing around, but that is the point when they're that age. They are supposed to be playing around. So like those, like you said, those sensory classes, even though it seems very random and very messy, but that is the point of early stimulation, is that it's very unstructured. Your baby is just touching things, feeling things, experimenting, and so on.
Sometimes parents think that only full-time mothers, for example, who have a lot of time for their children, that is capable of giving them stimulation.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's not about just quantity, but also quality, right? So what do you think about that? How do you think parents should approach stimulation? Because some might get intimidated, like this stimulation might seem so big, I don't have time. But what do you think? How should parents manage time or energy to stimulate their children?
Well, I think, like you said, not everyone has the privilege of being a full-time parent and spending all that time with their kids. But yeah, like you said, it's not quantity, it's quality. Quantity matters to some extent, but what matters more is that when you're playing with your baby, you're actually engaged, instead of, some parents might be playing on their phone or just sitting there, but not really engaging with their baby. So I think the engagement and the interaction part is much more important than the quantity.
Because talking to your children is also stimulation, right? We are stimulating them. So this brings back, because I know that your background, you've been involved with a lot of early childhood education world.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what inspired you to start learning time. But really, what inspired you to actually start learning time? What is the pain point that you see that drives you? Okay, I think I want to make a solution for this.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Hong Kong. So I think part of it was cultural for me, because I saw a lot of parents in Hong Kong. They're very results driven. So what it means is, like, a lot of parents will ask us in the schools, like, when will my baby walk? When will they talk? When will they do like ABC? So for us, we realize, because parents are so results driven, they often overlook the actual process of playing in those early years. And I think there were a lot of things on the market at that time that address like nutrition and sleep and a lot of the baby's other needs. But playing is one of those things that parents were just like, okay, it doesn't matter. Like, I'll just buy some random toys, or I'll figure it out as I go, kind of thing. So for us, we really identified, like, okay, there is a chance for us to make something more systematic for parents and more convenient. So when you're a new parent and you don't know what's going on, you can just have this one program. Yeah, you can have this one program that you have all the things that you need. You don't have to worry about, okay, should I be getting this or that? So you get it in your program, and then you can just simply follow some of the activity suggestions, and it helps a lot of the worries that you have about if you're doing things right. We try to solve those worries for you.
I really relate to what you said about sometimes we focus on it's important. I know, like, it's important for us to know when our babies are crawling and walking. I mean, it's a milestone, but sometimes we only measure that as parameter that, our baby is developing. What do you think we should actually refer to that's often underlooked? Because I know that you also created your program based on stages, right?
Yeah.
What do you suggest parents should look out other than those kind of milestones?
So I think, first of all, milestones are useful. They're useful to some extent, especially for parents who are not medical professionals. So the reason we break it up into 6 months programs is because we find that children's development is not very linear. So not all children follow the same developmental path. So within those 6 months, like let's say 0 to 6 months, generally you'll see children starting tummy time. Generally you'll see children starting to sit or starting to babble. But we don't want parents to be like, oh, it's 4 months and my baby hasn't done this.
Oh, and then pressured.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what we're trying to move away from. But we do still think, okay, having some general knowledge of developmental milestones is important, just so that you can look forward to some things and you can celebrate those milestones as well.
Yeah. So we have a goal, and I think through the program that you had, you also mentioned about what kind of milestone that you can look forward to. And it rings a bell that some parents might be panicked if their babies are not hitting a certain milestone for that. So my next question would be, I see that the learning time here are quite different from, for example, I see toys in market when they are popular with colors, you know, and funny stuff, you know, like funny characters and all of that. What goes in the process of designing these products? Because I think, judging from the market, a lot of colorful stuff, but what goes in the design process? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so I have to credit a lot of the design to my co-founder, my sister. She's the one with the design background. And I think when I told her, like, okay, let's start learning time together, she already told me, like, I don't want to create toys like the ones that look on the market. She is really against the super high contrast, like super plastic, that kind of feeling. So we wanted to create something that was more calm. So not overstimulating for the baby or the parent.
Oh, because it's not overstimulating as well.
Yeah, exactly. Right. These colors that we choose, I mean, they look nice, of course, but functionally they're supposed to bring you kind of a sense of calm. Yeah. And I think from a more educational perspective, we do make sure that each item is tested with the market. So we do a lot of children observations, because we work with a preschool. So we're very fortunate to have children every day that we can go in, we can observe them, we can test our products with them, we can talk to teachers. So I think that kind of synergy works really well with us when we're developing our products.
Because you really tested with the users, which are the children. Yeah. And now, speaking of, you mentioned about toys that are out in the market. I recently came across an article saying that there's a difference between active and passive toys, right? So what is the difference, and what segment are you leaning towards with learning time? So
when we talk about active and passive toys, we can really think of it in this way, which is how much is the toy doing for the child? An active toy is a toy that does everything for the child. So you can imagine, for example, the most active kind of toy would be like a screen, like an iPad.
Yeah, that's the most active.
That's the most, that's about as active as you can get, because your child is just passively watching. They don't have to move anything. They just sit there and watch. So other kinds of active toys, I would say, are those that, like, if you just press a button and then 10 different things happen, you know, lights, sounds.
A lot of toys are like that.
Yeah, so a lot of toys are like that. I mean, they have some purpose, which is just to keep your child entertained. But we are trying to steer away from that. We're trying to steer towards the passive toys direction, which is actually, when you look at our stuff, they don't do anything on their own, right? They look like very normal kind of objects. Yeah. But the child, when they start to experiment and they start to touch and explore, then they'll kind of figure out their own ways to play with it. And then in that process, they'll pick up skills like fine motor skills or problem solving and so on.
So it's really like one product, but you can actually explore a lot of ways to do it. Because I remember Launa, my child. Yeah. So we have this product, right? I know from the manual that one of the ways to play with the product is to take the shapes. Yeah. But what she did was, like, she's putting items which are not these shapes inside. So it's like she's finding her own way to play with this. So I find it a bit, I find it interesting. So I think that's what you mean by passive toys, right? It's the child that's active. Exactly.
Yeah. So like Launa, she's figuring out, oh, this thing is a container. Like you can put all kinds of things into a container, not just these shapes, right? Like we as adults, we try to find a way to play with this toy because we already know, okay, this is a triangle, so we're going to try to fit it through the triangle.
That's like the ideal. That's what I'm directing her for. But instead, she found another way to play with it.
That's perfect.
So that serves the purpose.
Exactly. I mean, the reason we made this way is also because babies, they're not going to match the shapes anyway, because they're way too young at this age. I know a lot of shape containers in the market, they use wood or plastic, but the reason we use it as such a flexible material, for example, is because they can just do whatever they want. They can put the circle in the square hole. They can put the triangle in the circle hole. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Oh, I think so. That's why the design has a purpose behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
I just knew why you made it from rubber.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I also wanted to know, I think you want to address products that can make the child more active.
Yeah.
What kind of pain points that you also find in the market and you're trying to solve it with learning time? Is it from the material side or other pain points? I
think, material is definitely one thing. We notice a lot, like I said, a lot of these kind of tools and toys in the market are plastic. There are also a lot of wooden toys, which are great. Montessori, for example, uses a lot of natural materials. Yeah. But then we thought actually silicone, especially like this kind of food grade silicone, is quite, it's not really used much for toys. Usually they're used for like spoons or plates, those kind of things. Because it's for eating, so it's food grade. Exactly. But then we thought, actually, it's a perfect material to use for some of these tools because it's so safe that you don't have to worry about it. And it's so flexible that you can do a lot with it as well. This is one of my pain points as a parent. Sometimes I already have the list of activities that I want to do with my baby and I want to play with her. But sometimes it's so challenging to keep her focused. I know that especially after she can walk, she will go all over the place. So for example, I try to play with her. She ran off and then I try to read a book with her. She will read it for the first 10 to 15 seconds and she will run off. Okay. So some people might think that means that your child is not really focused at. But how do you see that? Is it like normal? Or like what is like the baseline? What do you consider as the child is not focused versus, that's like very normal. And perhaps how do we approach playing with child then in terms of expectation? I think expectation is the key word. I think us, like as adults, we have a lot of expectation that we put onto our children. So, okay, playtime this time, we want them to read a book. We want them to name like 5 colors, right? We have all these expectations for them. But actually, the one thing that I think is most important is that when you enter playtime, just get rid of all expectations. Okay, so we don't have expectation for them to accomplish anything. Like, okay, you want her to sort shapes with this thing, but then she ends up putting random things inside. That's the exact example that I'm talking about. So playtime for children, especially under 2 years old, is completely unstructured. Like, there's no rules for playtime. If she really doesn't feel like reading and she'd rather run off and grab this or grab a remote and start pressing buttons, actually, I think that's perfectly fine. So as a parent, we just leave our expectations open and then we just kind of follow our child's lead. I think a lot of early childhood pedagogies kind of follow this way of thinking, such as Montessori, is like follow the child, right? Yeah. So if your child wants to, explore this, but you want them to do this, just follow your child, Okay. And then, So that doesn't mean that the child isn't focused. They're just being children. They're just being children. And that's fine. Exactly. Okay. And I think one really important fact that we always tell parents is just remember that your child's attention span is about 2 minutes per year of age. So what that means is if they're 1 year old, usually if they can focus for 2 minutes on a task, that's already very good. Very good. Yeah. So usually they want to switch from one task to another. Yeah. Okay. And another question that is often talked by my followers are, if, for example, you have a lot of toys, if you give them too many options at the same time, they will end up unfocused, because they have so many options in front of them. And so they will just pick this and then they will switch to another one very quickly. Yeah. What do you think about that? So the myth that if we put too many toys in front of them, they will be less focused growing up. So actually, interestingly, there was a study on this. Okay. So the research, it's not really a myth anymore, actually. The researchers already basically showed that, the more toys you have, the less amount of time your child spends engaging with each toy. So if you put 10 toys, they might spend, 5-10 seconds with each toy. But if you give them 4 or 5, they might spend 15-20 seconds with each toy. So we can say that they focus longer when there are less toys, but I don't think necessarily it means that it will affect them long term. Like they're going to have ADHD or something, and not necessarily to that extent.
So would you recommend them have less options, or just like it depends on the situation?
Yeah, so there's this concept comes from Montessori as well. So the concept of a toy rotation, they call it.
Okay.
And you might have heard of it as well, right? Yeah. So like the idea is that you have a shelf and then you give them a few options, like maybe 4 to 8 toys. And then throughout maybe 1 or 2 weeks, you see which toys that she's really interested in. And then in the 3rd or 4th week, you take some of the toys that she's not really using that much, and then you replace them with something. And then you see again which one she likes. And then you kind of go through this process. Number one, it helps with what I said about the focus thing.
Yeah.
But number two, it also keeps your toys like fresh. So she doesn't get bored. Like you buy her a new thing and then she gets bored. You see it
every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes the comment is like, I don't want to buy you a new toy because you will get bored. But sometimes we can actually manage that by rotating our toys.
Exactly.
So it's a concept from Montessori.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's also normal for toddlers to seem uninterested in playing what we offer them. But how can we make the playtime more interesting? For example, I will see that in books, sometimes you can make it more interesting by giving expressions, intonations, or colors, or the picture. But what about playing time? Like, what about stimulation time? Like, how do we make it interesting? Is it the voice, or is it how we engage with them? Or because sometimes we want to play and facilitate our children, right? Can you give us tips?
Well, I think what you said is already quite good. I think, first of all, your expressions. So I think parents naturally kind of do this when they talk to kids, is that you raise your voice so your pitch is like higher, and then your intonation is more exaggerated, and then you use like different facial expressions. And I think another way is just mirroring what your child says back to them.
Oh, so, for example?
Yeah. So, I mean, even before your child can talk, even if they're going like, like that, just mirror it back to them. Like, and then you say, and then you kind of have this conversation with them, even though they're not saying anything, but you take turns, saying things. They'll say like blah, 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 blah. And then you say something back to them, and then they'll say something back to you. And then this is kind of teaching them how to, like, the flow of a conversation as well. And I think, it's just little things actually, but your child is already interested in you. So as long as you're engaged with them, I think normally it's like, not too big of a deal.
Now, you've also mentioned that you've been in an environment that's constantly surrounded by children because you have a kindergarten, a nursery as well, right?
Yeah.
So I think you can directly observe, what do you think kids are actually lacking in terms of stimulation, in general? I think you've mentioned parents sometimes can be so results driven, but what do you think is also lacking in terms of stimulation from an early age generally?
That's a good question.
Makes us think. I'm also wondering.
So actually, in our preschool, we have starting from playgroup. So
playgroup.
And actually, we launched a program called Play Lab, which is even earlier. So starting at 3 months. So
3 months.
Yeah, 3 months.
What I know is 6 months.
Yeah,
it's 3 months.
Yeah, so playgroup is starting from 6 months. And then we kind of did this trial thing for Play Lab, which is starting from 3 months. And then the response was quite interesting because some parents feel like, it's too early to bring my kids in.
Yep.
And then some parents really love it because they have guidance from the teachers. But I think one thing that we notice is that parents are just, they overthink it.
Yep.
Like, what should I be doing? Like, what's the perfect way to engage with my child right now? And then the main advice the teachers always give the parents is like, you don't have to think about it, actually. It should be, it's a natural thing, right? Like, okay, your child is doing this and then you're making these expressions. Like, it's not something that you have to think about and then say like, okay, now it's time to do this. Yeah. So I think maybe that's one of the things that I see as one of the bigger challenges is this overthinking and trying to do things perfectly and trying to make sure that, I think perfect is the way to put it.
Yeah.
But really what we're trying to do is we're not trying to do things perfectly. We're just trying to just do it. Just do the interaction and the engagement.
So you mentioned for parents to not feel so pressured to provide the perfect stimulation or activities to your children. So how do you measure success then? So is it interacting with your kid, being responsive is enough for them because they will feel it? Or what are the easier checklists so we will not get pressured?
I think there's two sides to it. So one side is the development side. To be honest, for all developmental related things, a lot of parents like to kind of diagnose their own children. They think like, oh, my child has speech delay, or my child is cannot crawl yet. My advice is leave all the development stuff for the experts. So normally you'll take your child for a checkup anyway, right? Every few months, like 9 months, 18 months. Just your doctor will definitely do like a screening for them, and they will be the ones to kind of tell you if there are some things to be concerned about for your child's development. So for parents, I don't think worrying about development is your main concern. The other side of it is kind of like what you said about your child feeling like they're being nurtured and you're being responsive as a parent. And then you can definitely see that through their attachment with you. So I don't know if you've heard of attachment styles. You probably have heard of different types of attachment style, right?
What kind of different styles? I just know attachment from the child.
Okay, so the best type or the most ideal type is called secure attachment. So that means like when you're not with your child, they might cry, they might look for you, like, oh, where's my mom? And then when you come back, they should feel safe again. And they should feel safe enough to kind of explore and continue doing whatever they were doing.
Okay.
So some children who have like an anxious attachment, if you leave and come back, they'll be so scared that you leave again that they just like cling on to you.
Oh, okay.
And then they'll be like, oh, I can't go play because you might leave again. So these kind of hints, I would say, are good for parents to see like, okay, if my child is confident and they can play like when I'm around, then it's a good sign that you have a pretty good attachment with your child. It means that you're taking care of their needs. It means that they feel safe and nurtured by you. So I think these are already pretty good indicators that you're doing it right.
But what causes anxious attachment? That's interesting.
So anxious attachment is usually when your child doesn't know what to expect. So maybe sometimes you leave and you don't tell them, and then, or like you leave for a long time and you don't come back, and they're like, oh, I don't know when my mom is coming back. So they start to get really anxious. They're like, okay, the next time you leave, I have to make sure that you're not allowed to leave, So I'll like grab onto you, I'll cry, I'll do whatever it takes for you to stay with me because I'm scared that you're going to leave and not come back. So actually, very interestingly, attachment can come out in adult relationships too. So children who grow up with anxious attachment, you might see as an adult, you might be like a very clingy type of person in a relationship. I mean, there are also other types of attachment, like avoidant attachment. So it's quite interesting.
Okay, and it starts from we're a child because that's also why I often heard that if we want to go to work, for example, don't just hide and go away because, in the short term, your child will not realize that and will not cry. But I think we are forced to like let your child know that you're going to go so they will know what to expect, even though their response would be like not immediately permissive, but at least we're training them to know what to expect.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just saying like, okay, I'm going to be going to work and I'll come back at this time. Even when your baby is, not talking yet, they can still understand you. So it's a good practice to do.
So can you bring us through stimulation from each stage? I know your programs from Learning Time is focusing on newborn stimulation and then from 7 to 12 months. So what is like mainly the difference between each stages? Like, why is it differentiated? I know you given a range, so it will give a wide space to measure their progress. But what's the focus on newborn stimulation versus the next stage?
Yeah, so I think like I touched on it just now, 0 to 6 months. In the very early months, your baby can't do anything. So they're just laying there, they're just looking around. So a lot of the stimulation comes from visual stimulation.
Okay.
Which is why I'm sure you've also heard like high contrast, black and white. Those kind of concepts are already quite popular, I think, in Indonesia, which is great. And then another thing is in those ages, we're working a lot on tummy time. So, which is why we focus a lot on supporting babies during tummy time, because I think a lot of babies are uncomfortable when they do tummy time. It's like a workout for them. They have to do like a push up, So it's for us, we're just trying to make them feel comfortable so that they can practice more tummy time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tummy time can be done as early as after they were born, right? Because some people judge like, why is that baby already on tummy time?
Yeah.
But actually it's recommended, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you can. Certainly you can do it the moment your baby is born. But obviously the way you do it is not the same as when they're 6 months old. So maybe in the early months, you just put them on your own tummy and they won't be able to lift their head up. So they're just kind of laying their head on you. That is still considered tummy time.
That is still stimulation as well.
Exactly, yeah. That's still, you bonding with your child through the skin-to-skin contact as well. And obviously, if your baby can't really lift their head up, don't just leave them on the ground because that's very uncomfortable. But yeah, there's various ways to do tummy time even before your baby is like fully ready to push up and lift their head up.
So it's a step-by-step process. The essence is still learning how to do tummy time, but you do it in different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. And for the next stage, when the baby 7 till 12 months, what do you actually focus on? Because I know at that stage, perhaps generally, but might be different. The babies are starting to learn how to sit down and then start crawling. Some might even walk. What do we as parents need to focus during those phases?
Yeah, so I think the main thing is when they start to crawl, the way they play is completely different now because they can choose where they want to go. Whereas in the first few months, they're just laying there and you bring everything to them. When they crawl, they can crawl over there. They can reach things on your shelf. So the way they explore is very different. And also sitting is a really important milestone because it's like the foundation of a lot of their skills in the future. So we do encourage children to play in the seated position.
Okay.
So some of the tools.
It's designed for seating position.
Exactly. So for example, like this Discovery mug, we made it into this shape because when children can't really sit properly, they'll lean forward. So it's called a tripod position actually. So there's like there's two legs and then your arms out front and they're kind of leaning forward using their arms as support. And so they can play with this thing while they're in that position. So yeah, we try to take you through like the stages of sitting and the stages of crawling. And then at the same time, at that age, it's really important to keep talking to your baby because they're babbling a lot. So the sounds are more complicated than before. So yeah, I think that stage is focusing on those areas mainly.
So yeah, because this is like one of Launa's favorite toy. You can like it's like a magic trick.
Yeah, it's a magic trick. Yes,
it's like a magic trick. But sometimes children can actually find creative ways to do it. She can like pretend drinking with this.
Exactly.
Like there's no water, but she's like drinking.
Yeah. So the reason like this thing, why children think it's like magic is a concept called like object permanence.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you also saw it in the guidebook, right?
It's in the guidebook, everyone. So if you feel like I don't know as much as you, nope. Everything is all here.
Yeah, everything is in there. Exactly. So that concept is really cool. It's like the idea that when you can't see something, for us, we know, right? If you cover a ball with a cup, you know that the ball is still there. But for babies, they're still learning this. So they might think like, oh, it actually disappeared. It's like magic.
Oh.
So when your baby pulls all this stuff out of the cup, they're like, whoa, where did this come from? They're learning that concept of object permanence.
Yeah, so I've also heard that there are some principles that we can actually teach our child. For example, object permanence. That's why this really helps them introduce the concept. Yeah. But we can also do it with a lot of ways as well. So what kind of skills that we can train them within that age other than object permanence? So
7 to 12 months, they're learning a lot. So including this shape container thing, like you mentioned just now, Launa likes to put things inside, right?
Yep.
That concept is called containment. So the containment is basically like things can be contained inside this container.
So it's around that age.
It's also around that age.
12.
6 to 12 month range. They're realizing like, okay, for example, a cup can hold water, but once you poke a bunch of holes in the cup, the water leaks out. Right. So that concept of containment is really simple for you and me, but for babies, it's like, it's
complex.
crazy, it's like, it's magic. Yeah, so they're also learning these kind of concepts along the way.
So I think, is it important for us parents to know from that concept first and then we find the activity? But how do we actually know that? Sometimes it's hard to find the information.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't stress too much.
Yeah.
Like,
Again, perfectionist.
Yeah, exactly. This is perfectionist kind of mentality. If you really wanted to know, of course, there are a lot of resources online. In our program, there's the Play Journal, but online, there's also a lot of trusted resources. Like you can look at the CDC, you can look at World Health Organization, you can look at these kind of resources to see what kind of milestones you should expect. But to be honest, even if you don't know about these milestones, your child will probably discover on their own. So like containment, they'll probably find like a box in your kitchen and then start putting things inside.
Oh, okay.
Or they'll take their toy box and then they'll just dump everything out.
So it's natural. Yeah. And I think you also, that's why in the program Thinker, what was helpful was like, other than you give ways on how the child can play with the toy. But other than that, I think it's more of like development steps, like for example, this can help babies learn cognitive and physical gross motor skills, perhaps. So I think that's like, oh, okay, that kind of connects with a big idea on why the children will be given this. So I think you also mentioned overstimulation and understimulation. And honestly, I've heard a lot about this. For example, do not bring your child to the mall because it will overstimulate them. And it became like, do not go to the mall instead of like how to strategically go to public places.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah. So how would you define overstimulation? Because we probably need a guideline on defining that so we can avoid just stop doing something randomly, right?
Yeah. That's an interesting one, actually. I've never heard the don't go to mall. That one is
like
interesting.
Public places, do not go to... Your baby is still small. They will be overstimulated. But it depends on the context, right?
Yeah. I actually think that kind of stimulation is different from when we talk about playing kind of stimulation. Yeah. So I think that kind of stimulation is more like, it's very noisy and there's a lot of things going on. Generally speaking, unless your baby has some kind of like high sensitivity issues, it's usually not a problem. But I mean, of course, I'm not a medical expert, but I mean, this is from observation. But when we talk about overstimulation during playtime, it's more about like, I think you can see some signs if your baby is overstimulated. Because for example, if they're really used to like looking at a screen, when you give them something like this, where they have to be very hands-on, they'll lose focus very quickly. Because they're like, oh, this toy's not doing anything. It's not what I'm used to. They'll just, throw it to the side. So babies who are generally very overstimulated, they get bored very quickly. And so it can seem like their attention span is very short. So that's quite different from saying like, I'm in a very noisy place and like all the noises are overstimulating.
Okay. Yeah. So in the playtime, how would we avoid overstimulating them?
I think like it goes back to the idea of how much is your toys doing for you? How active is your toys?
Passive toys.
I think you can kind of tell by just thinking about it, like what do I have to do to get this toy to do something?
Yep.
If I have to do a lot, like I have to take the blocks out, I have to stack them, that's a good sign that the toy is not too overstimulating.
Okay.
The less I have to do to get the toy to do something, the more stimulating it is.
So that's how do we measure that?
Yeah.
Now the contrary, understimulation. I think you've mentioned there are some babies that are understimulated because we are just gonna let them explore. Well, at the same time, the Montessori method also encourages the children to explore. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But with facilitation, perhaps. Yeah. So how do you define a child is understimulated?
Understimulation, I would say it has to do more with the parent-child interactions. So generally speaking, if you already have the right kind of tools and you kind of let your baby freely explore, they won't really be understimulated because they can choose what they want to do. But,
so it's exploring.
Yeah, exactly. But more understimulation is mainly related to like when the parent is not engaging with their children as much. So the stimulation from the parent to the child is not sufficient.
In terms of communication or what?
Yeah, like in terms of, like I said, being like present. So I can sit here and I can watch my child play. But if I'm just watching TV, then actually it's the same as you not being there.
Yep.
So that kind of over time, when the child realizes like, oh, my parent is not really engaging with me, they'll kind of, it goes back to attachment. They'll develop this kind of avoidant style of attachment. They'll become very independent. They won't need you for anything. They won't cry. They'll kind of just do things by themselves. And that's usually a sign that you're not engaging enough with your child.
I think that's the key, whether your presence is the same with you're not being there.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
If we're present but we're playing phones, why would we need to be there, right?
Exactly.
I think that's like one measurement. And now I'm interested about screen time. You know, you said that overstimulation can come from a child that's used to screen time with so many colors, movements, and everything. How would you recommend a child to actually start
screen time?
Or is it like step by step? I think you've seen a lot of children in your school as well, right? What do you think is right?
So screen time is always one of those issues, I think, that parents are talking about. So in our school, at least in Hong Kong, we basically don't allow screens until 2 years old.
2 years old.
So that's the minimum.
All.
That's the minimum is 2 years old. And then even after 2 years old, we use screen time very sparingly. Maybe you have a large interactive screen and they can like draw stuff on it, but that's the extent of it. We're not going to make them sit down and watch like a 30-minute video.
So no, after 2 years old, no watching video from screen time, even for like 5 minutes. No.
Oh no, not that. I mean, I guess you could say, you can start to introduce screen time after 2 years old, but of course do it sparingly. Yeah. So not like, not using screens as a way to distract your child or like pacify your child, but using it in a more useful way. So
as a tool.
Yeah, as a tool.
Okay.
Yeah, like a learning tool. Yeah.
Okay, so like drawing, or what else would you advise parents?
Yeah, like some parents like to do like storytelling, like or like
with the screen.
Yeah, with a screen, or like singing some songs together. But as long as the screen, you think of a screen as a tool to facilitate more interaction, not to replace your interaction. If that makes sense.
Okay, that's the key word.
Yeah,
it's to facilitate interaction and not to replace the interaction.
Exactly.
So I think after building learning time, you went through a lot of iterations, right? Because I knew that learning time exists from like a few years back. And I think you've did a lot of iteration. What was your learning? Like, I know there's a lot, but maybe some highlights that you think are interesting that made you iterate your product. Yeah,
I think actually the driving factor was that our first program, when we launched in like 2018. 2018. Yeah, it's quite a few years ago. That first program was very focused on the parents. So what we try to do is we really try to educate parents and really try to teach them like, okay, this is what you should do. And then we realized, number one, a lot of parents don't have that much time, especially working parents. And then number two, like we put all the burden onto the parents and kind of expect them to be teachers. But I don't think that's really fair, because, parents are just normal people as well. So when we iterated our program, we really wanted to make it simpler. Like just the whole thing, simpler to use, simpler. It looks simpler. It feels simpler. The guidebook is not like an instruction manual, but it's more like a suggestions and, it's more lighthearted. So that was kind of the driving factor to changing our program to what it is now. So it was, but you also made products, stimulation products as well, right? But you made it less like a guideline, like a strict guideline for parents. I mean, we redesigned all of our products actually, because it's not like there's something wrong with our previous products, but for us, it was like, we want to always improve our products. And then, there are a lot of places we can improve, such as the material, such as the design. So after we gathered all that feedback, our next step was just, okay, we're going to improve everything. And then this final iteration is what we think is the best version. And it's researched back and also tested with real children. So it's user-centric. And lastly, if you can say an advice for new parents on how would they better approach stimulating their child, because I know if we heard about the first 1,000 days, we might get pressured. We might question ourselves. Are we doing enough for our children? So what is your advice for them? I think kind of going back to what I said just now about not having like such high expectations and also not expecting yourself to be perfect all the time. I think that will relieve a lot of the stress of like actually playing with your child and actually enjoying that time with your child. I mean, that those first few years go by so quickly, right? So you don't want to spend those first few years stressing and worrying. I mean, to some extent, I would say it's important to know generally your child's development. Like, so doing your research, having an idea of what your child development will look like, but not using that as like okay, I must follow this and I must hit these milestones kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Darien, for the insightful session. I believe that we as parents, we can definitely note this. And I think what really struck me is that we as a parents do not have to feel perfect, but it's about whether our presence really give an impact for them emotionally, and then they will feel like we really care for them on top of like giving them the right stimulation. So I really hope that, I believe that learning time would really help a lot of parents in guiding them, because honestly, as a new parents, so many information. I know we got frustrated about having our children eat. Definitely, stimulation. We don't want to get stressed again. So I really wish you good luck. And
thank you, Suria.
I hope that you can continue to help more parents and of course children. So thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for your support as well. Really appreciate it.
Yes. I really do support products I believe in. So yes, thank you so much. And I hope this is insightful for you guys. And if you guys have any comments or question, you can comment on the comment section or tag us at bossmama.society and let us know what you think about this episode. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.